Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am in the studio with Mr. Chris Lowery. I'm so excited to have you in today.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. So, as everyone has, I'm sure we've all been following the forums that recently, well, the one forum that recently took place at the Elks Lodge, correct?
Correct.
I was able to catch it on the Heat magazine. I believe also Pine Bluff Commercial was there. And Chris has been uploading some videos on your page. Did you go live on your page?
That night I did not.
Okay, but you've been putting some of the clips up there so you guys can understand his platform and everything that he has going on. Like I told him when he came into the studio this morning, I think that we pretty much know his experience, his expertise, his passion for serving the citizens of Jefferson County and bringing about change. So this morning is going to be all about cultural diversity and community policing.
Good deal. Love it.
All right, so I will let you go ahead and introduce yourself for those who may not know. Give us a little bit of a background of where you grew up, what you did after high school to bring us current.
Okay. So again, as Andrea stated, my name is Chris Lowery. I was born and raised right here in Jefferson County. Came from a split family, a little bit raised out south of Pine Bluff out on a farm. And then I lived with my father in Watson Chapel, ultimately ended up graduating from Whitehall High School in 1992. Where 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I joined the United States Air Force, where I still serve today in the Air Guard component. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Kathy. We have 5 children between us and 10 grandchildren. In 2010, after the military active duty component had ended up, I moved back here to Jefferson County, just north of Whitehall, out in the unincorporated area out there. Lived there since till 2019. Unfortunately, we had a child pass away in 2019. It was a very big family event, and so we moved to Little Rock for a couple of years just for my wife's mental health purposes. And then we moved back here in 2022. We're proud business owners in the Pine Bluff area. We own a dog training company called Diamond State Canine, and I'm also a law enforcement officer that works right here in the community.
That's amazing. My condolences. I had no idea that you guys suffered that loss. My condolences to you and your wife and your whole family. But one thing I must say, Chris, that I've known you for about 2 weeks now, I believe.
Right.
But I did go and check out your Facebook page, your county sheriff page. And I must say that I'm quite impressed how you just are able to get on live and you want people to ask you questions. And anybody who's catching this live, please ask us questions. At the end, we're going to go back and look through and make sure that we get all of your questions answered. So first of all, I just want to applaud you.
Thank you.
For the job you've done from a media and marketing standpoint. I think you have done an outstanding job with marketing and just reaching out to me because we saw each other at a King Cotton event.
Yes, ma'am.
And he came up to me. I actually didn't even think you were talking to me. I thought you wanted to talk to Ryan. I was tapping him he was like, no. I said, okay. So just kudos to you.
Thank you.
But let's get into the elephant that sometimes is in the room.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Cultural diversity when it comes to policing and law enforcement. I think you've talked a little bit about diversity training on your platforms and during the forum about how you plan to go about making sure that the people that are under your leadership understand how to interact with different ethnicities, right?
That is correct.
But I can only speak from my point of view, and I am a Black woman married to a large Black man with 2 Black boys and 1 Black daughter. So there are some concerns that I have. And I must say that for me personally, voting for you is not the issue that I have. I feel like if you were elected, you could lead Jefferson County where it needs to be. My concern is the people that may be hired under you. What mindset are they going to be in? What type of training are you going to put in place for any white officers that are hired under your tutelage?
Well, so, when I go back to some training that I've received over my career, one of the ones that sticks out to me most importantly, I've had a lot of different diversity training, but an implicit bias class that I took one time, probably back in 2010, uh, that opened up my eyes to some things, to just the way people think without even knowing they're thinking this way, right? So I would really look at what is currently in place with the sheriff's office, what they do compared to the state standards. We are governed by CLEST, which is who governs what law enforcement officers training to do. But I would seek the best training that would encompass the implicit bias and cultural diversity for all of our officers, not just specifically the white officers, but I do understand your question. I think it's fair for all of them to be trained to have an understanding. This community is a large African American community, but there's other folks here as well, Chinese and Korean, Indian, what have you. So it would be very important for me to try to incorporate that as much as possible for people to understand, different cultures and how I would expect them to deal with them, which is just fair, firm, and understanding. So,
Absolutely. What is your take on socioeconomic status when it comes? So all ethnicities have this, right?
yes,
White people have it, black people have it, Asians, so forth and so on.
yes, ma'am.
We all have different statuses and classes within our own ethnic groups. You being a white man, you understand yours, right? You understand what goes on in your social statuses. But as a black woman, I know one of the things that you were talking about on the forum was you're going to crack down on criminals. You're going to be hard on crime. And I don't know the statistics. I have not looked them up. But just reading the news and the headlines, it seems like young black males are a big part of crime in Pine Bluff. Is that fair to say?
I believe that's a fair assessment to say based off of my experiences here.
Okay. So now, as a black mom, my concern is I have a son. He'll be 13 in March.
Yes,
He
ma'am.
plays basketball. He plays football. He's a good kid. But I find myself when we're going to the gas station, like if I pick him up from practice and he's like, Mom, hey, can I stop and get a snack? He has his hoodie on. He has his backpack on. And I'm like, hey, wait. Take your backpack off. Take your hoodie off before you go in there, because you don't want anybody to think anything. I want you to come back out in one piece.
Okay.
So for the parents out there who we are raising our children to be upstanding citizens, and we do have these different statuses and classes, but when your officer is looking at my son, what training are they going to have to know that, hey, this is one of the good ones? Because when you're just looking at somebody, you have no idea. So you're going to go back to your human instinct. So if an officer has been raised that they don't like black people, or they've been raised that black people don't like you, what are we going to do about that narrative?
So first off, I would hope that starting with the hiring process, that the deputies, officers are vetted. If they don't like black people, that would hopefully come out during, background checks and what have you. But with ones that are there that may not understand the different socioeconomic statuses or cultural diversity, it's with that training. And, I think everything comes back to leading by example. And I would talk to them personally about, just because a person dresses a certain way, because you spoke of they're having a hoodie and a backpack on, that doesn't mean they're carrying a gun or trying to rob a place or what have you. I mean, I look around and juveniles nowadays, teenagers, it'd be 90 degrees outside and they'll have a hoodie on, right?
Yeah,
and so,
crazy.
To be honest with you, the first thing I think is, oh my gosh, how are they wearing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's more of a style. It's more of a being different, I guess, is what I do. I would explain to them that I like to talk about this. A good officer, he or she needs to be able to go from 0 to 100 and back to 0 really quick. And so what I mean by that is 0 is just being 100% cool, laid back, relaxed around the person. And then let the person, using your son, for example, that you just spoke about, if he was in a store with a backpack and a hoodie on, that don't mean nothing. Behaviors and actions equal something, right? So you treat them, it goes back to that old saying, don't judge a book by its cover, right? So, and I would be teaching that. And then knowing that if they did see a behavior that indicated some sort of criminal activity or some nefarious activity going on, they would be trained and understand how to deal with that, squash it at the lowest level, right? So you talk about me saying tough on crime, tough on criminals. What that means is accountability, right? It's just holding somebody accountable. I think we've gotten away from a society where if a person's in a store and they're just being disruptive or disorderly, of not just saying, hey, it's not worth all that. It's a soda. It's this, it's that, and move on. It doesn't mean like go to jail and that type of stuff. But what it really does is just teaching the deputies about people are different. People speak differently. People dress differently. If it's not a crime, let it be.
Yeah. Do you know what, I'm going to ask you this question. Are you opposed, if elected, are you opposed to starting like a quarterly forum or have a panel of people who come together and tell you about things that they are experiencing, tell you about things that they have fears about, tell you about things that they would like to change? Because the fact of the matter is, we're still different. And we can't expect you to know everything.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
we can't expect for your personality and your characteristics to be in everyone that you hire.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, the people have to want the job. And so
Correct.
Sometimes you're going to have to hire people if you need staff. But if they are able to go out into the communities, go out into the schools, get to learn these kids, get to know what they look like, get to know how they act, get to know how they truly think. Because I think the answer to the question is we just have to get to know each other. We have to understand each other. We have to learn how to relate to each other. Because at the end of the day, we all put our pants on one leg at a time, as
Yes.
they say. We all bleed red. So I think that if we just get everybody in one room, are they deputies?
Yes, ma'am.
Get the deputies out into the communities. Get the deputies out into the schools so they understand what it's like, what our kids are like, what our business owners are like where everyone is coming from. I think that could bridge the gap.
I 100% agree with you. The question was, I believe, am I opposed to that? And absolutely not. I'm not opposed to that. As a matter of fact, I don't know what that looks like. In my mind, I talk about monthly meetings, right? I want to do things where I'm 100% available all the time if I'm fortunate enough to be elected by the citizens of Jefferson County as the sheriff. But I've already started gathering and beginning to vet people to become part of boards or community organization to make that exact thing happen. And some of it looks like, dealing with the jail and dealing with recidivism. But the other part is dealing with the community, because you're absolutely right. I don't know what it's like to be you. I don't know what it's like to be a Black male, Hispanic male, whatever. I am my own person. So we need to have that feedback of what you understand. There's no who's right and who's wrong per se. It's about talking together and coming to some common ground there. Just yesterday, I was at the White House barbershop there in Whitehall, having a great conversation. Barbershop talk seems to be a good place that you can have those conversations where we can come into a room, talk about things, listen, and come out with a different understanding. And 100%, I would advocate for that. I would try to get involved with many of the community leaders and quote activists that seem to have a good interest for the community and try to pull that together. The other part of that is when you mentioned about getting involved in the schools and in the community. So I've mentioned it before, but I would mandate that every employee, deputy, civilian, what have you, that they would be involved with the community. And when I say mandate that is I would talk to every employee and understand what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then try to place them in a community-oriented event that provides their strength with what's needed in that environment. I guess an easy example for that would be if somebody's working at the sheriff's office that was maybe a collegiate basketball player, encourage them to get involved with the Boys and Girls Club or rec leagues of a basketball team and allow them to do that on duty, right? So I'm not making them do something for free, but that would do two things. It would help develop that relationship within the community, but it would also grow that deputy. Maybe sometimes put them in a small, uncomfortable situation to help them grow to be a leader for the future. So I think it goes hand in hand.
I like that because I really feel the breakdown is we don't talk to each other enough. We don't try to understand one another. And I'm not saying we don't try to understand each other, but we don't put ourselves in the position to be able to understand. Because I know that I will invite you to an outing, and I want to touch on the UAPB incident because one of the questions that someone put under our post was, did you go to UAPB homecoming?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to give you a chance to elaborate on that.
Well, thank you, Andrea. So I saw the question as well. I appreciate that so much. It's a very fair question. One of the things I like to say is no question deserves to be unanswered, and no question is too tough. We'll figure it out. But specifically involving the UAPB homecoming. So I don't advertise this wholeheartedly, but I will because I think it's fair for the question. I work for the Pine Bluff Police Department. At the Pine Bluff Police Department, or in the city of Pine Bluff, homecoming is probably the largest event within the city. If not, it's at least the second. But people come from all over the country back to this town and this community to celebrate UAPB's homecoming. That is a day that no police officer, zero, can be off. They call it a blackout day. And not only are you not off, we work normally 10-hour shifts. On that day, it goes 12, 14, or 16, whatever is required. It was a great homecoming this year. To my knowledge, there was no significant events crime-related. In the past, it has shown a history that there has been some significant events involved. So I don't think we worked as long. I think I did about a 12 or 13-hour day. But that's simply the reason why I didn't attend, the parade or any events involving homecoming. I had worked the night before and I worked the night of. So between 24 hours of that type event going on, and you got to rest somewhere to be on your toes out here on the streets. So.
Yeah. And then off camera, transparently, I asked Chris, I said, Chris, have you ever been invited to a UAPB homecoming game? And what did you tell me?
So I said back in 2007, I attended some live football games at the professional and collegiate level. And it was not an enjoyable experience for me. I determined that it was much more convenient, enjoyable for me to watch it on TV. I mean, we got TVs that are 60, 70, 80 inches now, Pauls, what have you. And I've just, since 2016, when my youngest son graduated high school, I've attended one sporting event. So in the past 9 years, it's just, I'm not a big sports goer.
Right. But when I asked you, had you ever been invited, what did you say?
I've never been invited to a UAPB game. So.
You've never been invited.
Correct.
And then I asked him, I was like, have you ever heard the phrase, you got to be invited to the cookout? And he said, yeah. So guys, we can't expect for people that don't look like us to come to our events. You haven't even extended an invitation. You have to let them know that they're welcome. Just like now, I did see a picture. You went to a Gillette. Was it a coon supper?
Yes, ma'am. That was the Gillette coon supper.
Coon supper. And I looked at the picture and I was like, I don't see any of people who look like me in that picture. But I don't know if anybody's ever invited someone to one of those. So we have to be mindful of those things because people are not just going to show up where they feel like maybe they're not even wanted. So if that's something that you would like to see, you have to be proactive and extend the invitation.
Absolutely.
You have to extend the invitation. So another question that, someone did ask about community policing. They wanted you to touch on that. I think we touched on it a little bit about saying you would get the people into things that they're passionate about, like basketball and getting them into the schools. Do you have anything else that you would like to touch on as far as community policing is concerned?
So I think law enforcement as a whole over the past 20 years has done a decent job about being in schools and that type of deal. I want to go further. I want to be into the neighborhoods, community centers, just walking the streets. I've noticed around here in Pine Bluff, particularly over the past couple of years that I've worked in this community as a law enforcement officer, there's a lot in the spring and summertime. There's a lot of events going on just within the neighborhoods, a lot of gatherings. I would like to incorporate more of that, just to walk up and talk about. I think I got this thing in my mind that we deal with the young kids, right? And then sometimes we deal with the juveniles, but I want to get involved in the parents' life as well, right? And developing that relationship. So if you can meet them, because if I go to school, it looks like this. If you send an officer to a school and they have a conversation with a kid and about how police is good and try to develop that relationship, and that's a 30 to 45 minute session, that child goes home, and if their home doesn't have a good relationship with law enforcement, it's not encouraged to talk about that, right? And so I want to try to, hit it in the neighborhoods, right? And I think that's a better approach to do, and that's how I would try to approach that.
I like that. I think that also bridging the gap between teachers, and we need more after school programs, I feel, because I know a lot of teachers who say students come to school sleepy because their mom was just in a domestic dispute last night, or their lights got turned off, or there's no heat in their home, or they had no food. So when you're a young person and you have no food, your mom's in a terrible relationship, you're coming to school trying to learn, and you can't think because first of all, you're hungry. Second of all, you come from a not good, I don't want to say terrible, but from a home environment that is not conducive to producing a productive citizen, realistically. So I think that there's space, if elected, to kind of figure out that gray area to see what we can do. And you can't do that on your own. It's going to take the citizens of Jefferson County coming together and helping to bridge that gap, because the fact that they're unable to learn when they get to school, it's going to spill over into now they can't be a productive employee, or they can't get into college because reading comprehensions and test scores, like all of this works together. So we need to make sure that whoever we put in leadership is looking at the bigger picture. And Chris, when I hear you talk, I have to say that you seem like a candidate who's always focusing on the bigger picture.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I do want to touch on, let's switch gears.
Okay.
Because we had another question about the incident that happened with the papers that were released with the Whitehall Police Department.
Yes, ma'am.
So take us through that.
All right. So I'll give a little bit of backstory. I had worked at Little Rock Police Department in the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office, and I got out of policing in 2021. When me and my son went into a business venture together, which is I referred to earlier as Diamond State Canine. I have always been in law enforcement. I have 22 years of law enforcement experience, and that's who I am. That's what I believe God put me on this earth to do. And in 2022, I had the itch to go back. Our business was thriving, thanks to the citizens of Pine Bluff and the entire state of Arkansas. And fortunately, I was able to step away from the business on a part-time basis to go to work, and had an opportunity to go to work at the Whitehall Police Department. It was just, I think everything is timing and opportunity. Somebody let me know they was hiring. I live in the community of Whitehall, went and applied. They said they needed an experienced officer, so I applied. That was more so for me to finish out my retirement, and I was there for a couple of years. And over the course of the time I was there, it was very enjoyable. But in 2024, we got new administration, got a new chief there. And, there was just what I felt was some tensions growing that was not spoke about. You call it the elephant in the room a while ago, right? So probably around April or May of 22, don't quote me, that's somewhere in there, I just started feeling tensions. I started feeling an elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. And due to some previous incidents that had occurred, not with me, with that department, I saw history repeating itself. And instead of me being a disgruntled or a person that was not happy. I have this thing that I always say, I've said it my whole life, maybe it makes sense to you guys or not. If you're not happy making hamburgers, learn to make French fries, right? Don't stay in one spot and be unhappy. I could tell that I was in a situation that just did not inspire me anymore. And I felt, I don't want to say targeted so much, but it just felt it was not the proper fit any longer. So, as within law enforcement, we kind of know people at all different types of departments, have friends at everywhere, and had the opportunity. Pine Bluff Police Department was hiring. I've had buddies that's worked here over years, and I went down and spoke to them, and I thought it was going to be a good fit. And honestly, so far it has. I tell people all the time, and some people that maybe worked there for 20 years, they're like, whatever. But I say this is the Pine Bluff Police Department by far has been the best police department I've ever worked at. So it's all worked out. I did see a couple of comments that I would like to address, if that's okay.
Sure.
That specifically says, this is their comments. I can't quote it exactly, but remember, he was fired from Pine Bluff Police or Whitehall Police Department. I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I have never been fired, terminated, or suspended from any job in my life, but specifically law enforcement. I was not fired from Whitehall Police Department. I surrendered a 2 weeks notice, as is the proper etiquette to do when you are leaving from one job to the other. And I left inside of that 2 weeks because that is standard operating procedure for the Whitehall Police Department. When you turn in your notice, they'll say, well, you go ahead and leave today. That's just, it happened before me. It'll happen after me. So I just wanted to clear that up because I've seen that posted a few times on social media. I don't get into a social media he said, she said mudslinging competition. That's just not me. And you give me the opportunity for him to speak, so I want to address that specifically. So
yeah, and I do want to go a little bit deeper because I don't want to leave room for anyone to say, well, he didn't really touch on what the paperwork was saying, because I read the papers. Absolutely. And I, coming from corporate, I've worked for AT&T, I worked for Verizon, I worked for Bank of America. I've actually worked for the state of Arkansas at ADC, and I know what it feels like when you are someone who does your job at a certain standard and you call people out on not following the rules, not following the law as they should. I think I read somewhere in there where the person who was writing the complaint, he said, I did not fully understand the law, and I was not doing a great job. And Chris was calling me out on that. At the time, he was not mature enough to say, okay, you're right. Let me learn the laws. Let me learn the ordinances. It was easier to just say, oh, he's picking on me. Chris did not say that. The paperwork said that because I read it. Okay. So I do want to throw that out there. When I read the papers, what I got was a man who was doing his job, upholding the law to the standard required for the position. And when he saw his counterparts not doing the same, he called them out on it. Now, I do want to say that the paperwork did say that sometimes the tone and the language that you used, they felt that it was condescending. But I will also say this: you guys were not Girl Scouts. You were in the law. You were law enforcement officers, and you have a military background. We've all seen the military movies. We've all seen the movies of law enforcement going through training and, being together. And we know that they use colorful language. They don't make everything pretty and wrap it up with a bow. They just tell you what it is. And sometimes, yes, they will hurt your feelings if you're not doing your job.
Yes, ma'am.
Did I say enough? Do you want to say anything?
Well, I will say that, in law enforcement, because it's a multifaceted career. So we're here to serve the citizens. We got to uphold the Constitution and treat everybody fair, and consistently, and not infringe upon their constitutional rights. So when you see things that people could interpret as a infringement, an officer creates a stop or conducts a search or acts in a way that is not lawful, but if they do it due to ignorance, I guess, or uneducated about it, you as a veteran officer, as a senior officer within the department, you should be holding them accountable. And what I would say to that is typically accountability looks like this. You say it at the lowest level, just like I talk about crime. When that doesn't seem to work, sometimes you have to escalate that into analogies, articulation, firmness of voice, because it matters. It matters if you are violating somebody's rights. It matters if you're going to be shot because you're unsafe. It matters if you're a police officer and you work the midnight shift and you don't have a flashlight on your belt. That matters, right? And if it doesn't matter to you, it matters to me, because we are police officers that have each other's back. If I need help, they're coming. I need them to have the equipment, the training, and the know-how to deal with that, so I can go home to my wife and family.
And that's because you want to make it home safely.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I understand. And I think that if you actually take the time to read the papers that were released, if you have ever worked a corporate job, you understand how it is when you are doing your job, you're following your policy and procedures, and you have coworkers who are not doing it. It makes more work on you, and it makes you frustrated because you are taking the time to learn how to do your job correctly. You want other people to do the same. That's what I got from the letters. You guys go read them and come up with your own conclusions.
If I could add one more thing to that, Andrea, just to be completely transparent about it, prior to those papers being posted on Facebook, social media, I had never seen those papers. They had never been presented to me as I analyzed them. Matter of fact, someone sent them to me, right? Like a screenshot of social media, and I had no idea what they were. And I was actually shocked when I found out that they actually are derived from the Whitehall Police Department. I went to the Whitehall Police Department to seek that information out, found out that is where they did come from. So what I want to add to that is, earlier I talked about possibly feeling some tensions and some situations on why I chose to leave. That kind of solidified some things, because those papers, those documents were never presented to me. So I think it's twofold as far as leadership and accountability. So
absolutely. Well, folks, there's your answer. I do want to touch on one other thing, though. This is from the forum, when you mentioned that you wanted to use the Family Dollar building. Now, some people had some pushback on that now, Chris.
They did.
Understandably, because we're not too far from their building right now. Yes, ma'am. So when I proposed that committee that you would put together, and I said quarterly, you said monthly meetings, I feel like that those are things that can be addressed then, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I can't say I feel. I'm going to ask you, are you willing to the ideas that you have, if elected, to bring them to the citizens and say, hey, this is what we're proposing? I know you can't do that with everything, but on some things, like putting a facility like that in the middle of where some people live and work, are you willing to have those things brought to your committee so that we can address them?
Yes, ma'am. Not only to the committee, but to the public, period. If I could clarify on that specific analogy. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was simply an analogy, because I work in the city. I see that area. There's a gas station that's been abandoned across the street. The new Church's Chicken just recently went in, but there's the old one across the street, catty corner, that's not being utilized. There's a Family Dollar there. There's an old convenience store there. And I see that area a lot. I wasn't necessarily saying put it there. That was just an example. There is a lot. I think I actually stated something along these lines, that in Jefferson County, particularly Pine Bluff, there's a lot of buildings and commercial space that is not being utilized. And what I was meaning, I like to try to paint a picture. And most people know 16th and Cherry just because of at times it's been a very prosperous place. Mm-hmm. So I was just saying, hey, we can utilize this. It's twofold. Overcrowding, cut down on recidivism, possibly institute work release programs to help people that are incarcerated while utilizing structures that are not being utilized. And, we see it all over town. You see roofs falling in and what have you. So I'll just use that as an example. If the community objected to anything that we were trying to do with the sheriff's office, if the city government objected to anything we were trying to do within the city, we would hear those concerns and try to work around them. One of the things that I believe I'm known for is I don't take a no we got to get to a yes. What does it take? So if the citizens didn't want it at 16th and Cherry, that's the example we're talking about, 100% we would listen to that. There is many other locations that we could go to, and I would explain why that is and what it's best, pros and cons. I get it. You know, I didn't mean for people to imply or infer that I was going to put a jail right in the middle of the neighborhood. It was just an example of a building. So that's where that came from.
That's good to hear, because I saw a lot of feedback, a lot of pushback on that. Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that you are open to communication.
Absolutely.
You are open to working with the citizens of Jefferson County. Is there anything else you would like for the public to know?
So what I would like to just really take a moment and talk to the citizens of Pine Bluff, Jefferson County, anybody that's listening to this live or watching it in the future, is just, you know, this area, this community, it's the only time I've ever been involved in a political race. I've always said I'm not a politician. That was never in the cards or the plan for me to do. I looked around, and I told you I have 20 years of law enforcement experience, and I work within this community, and I've seen a lot of stuff going on that just did not feel right. I was born here, raised here, and chose to come back here. And when I did that, it's changed since, you know, the 80s and 90s, and I don't know that it's changed for the good. It's population has declined, crime has risen, violent crime has really went up, and so as I've policed and been a law enforcement professional within the community, I started looking, what can we do about that? And it starts with leadership. I told you God put me on this earth to be a law enforcement professional, so I started looking at what could happen, how could I apply change there, and no one was willing to or had announced that they were going to step up and try to change the direction of our crime rate within our community. I believe that's where most of our issues start at. Businesses don't come to a place that are crime ridden. People don't want to move to a place that's crime ridden. So I want to work with the community to try to stop the bleed, stop people from leaving Jefferson County, and make it a destination place. And when no one else was willing to step up, I said, then I got to do it. You know, I have a business, I have a career, I'm in the military. I'm actually going to retire out of the military if I'm fortunate enough to get elected as the next sheriff of Jefferson County. So I'm giving up something I've done for 30 years to serve the community of Jefferson County, because I believe that's what it takes. I believe I'm the person that can make that happen. With that being said, I'm asking you to reach out to me on my phone number, 870-556-0330. Hit me up on Facebook or any of my social media platforms. Talk to anybody that knows me. I'll come to you. We'll have a meeting. Let's not judge this book by its cover. Get to know me. Just because somebody says this doesn't make it true. Do your own research. Do your own accountability for it. You're given a right to vote. I want you to use that right to vote. And I want you to cast it for the person that you believe is best suited to serve Jefferson County, whose ideals align with yours the most.
Absolutely. One thing that I'm not a politician. This is not a political channel. But one thing that I've learned in speaking with different politicians this campaign season is that everybody has their own platform and they believe in a certain thing. If you start reaching out to your candidates and alerting them of issues, then that issue is then going to become important to them. So when they say reach out, please reach out, because they can't fix what they don't know about. So one thing that I've learned is that when I'm speaking to candidates and I say, well, did you think about this? And they might say, well, no, I've never thought about that, but that's a good idea. I'll add that in. So be sure you're reaching out. Extend the invitation.
Could I address one more question that I don't think we got to, that I did see that someone posted? They said, you'd have to pull it up, but I believe the question was, why did he, meaning me, only talk about what Woods, meaning Sheriff Woods, has not done? I think that's the question, something along those lines. So the purpose of the forum the other night, let me be abundantly clear. I do not personally know Sheriff Woods. We have met 3 to 5 times over the course of my lifetime and probably had a total of 5 minutes worth of conversation. But from my perspective, the issues that are going on in Jefferson County can be fixed by leadership in a law enforcement capacity. And what I was attempting to do is not discredit anything Sheriff Woods has done. I wanted to be transparent to the community that was watching that forum. There were some things that were said that were just not the whole truths. I don't want to say they were untruths, because I don't believe that any person on that platform was trying to mislead people. But if you as a citizen don't know, and one of the examples I will give you is that he spoke about, and I don't want to rehash the platform, but he spoke about that he had computers installed in the police cars so they could cut down on response times. Okay. Well, since I've announced my candidacy, one of the largest complaints I get from citizens across this county is response times. Well, as I started looking at that and I investigated it as a law enforcement officer, deputies don't have the ability to do the reports in their car currently because of an internet issue or a software issue. I'm not sure. I don't work there. I just know that they're not able to do that. So the citizens need to know that, instead of thinking, oh, we do this. Well, that's great in theory if we're doing it. That's all that was. And it's not. And unfortunately, the live feed got cut there at the end or whatever. Last thing I did before I stepped off stage was shook Sheriff Lafayette Woods' hand, told him this isn't personal. I just want the citizens to be well aware of what's going on. So that's my intent behind it. No one could ever say they've heard me say a negative word about anybody who's running for this office. So I just want to clear that up.
That's true. Well, when I speak with you, you are always talking about how you want to better the Jefferson County, and you never speak about the downfalls of anyone else. So I can concur and say that that's true. I've never heard him do that. Okay, so I think that's it.
Okay, well, I thank you so much for having me on today. It was an awesome opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
I thank you for coming. I thank you for listening. I feel that you would listen in the future if elected. I feel that you would put that forum together, and it will be a diverse group of people so that you can hear from all ethnicities, so that we can work together to make Jefferson County better. One more thing I did want to touch on, because I saw this, and I don't know if it was about you. It was just a comment on the forum itself,
okay,
where candidates are talking about getting Pine Bluff back to where it used to be. But their take was, let's get Pine Bluff better than before.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that comment?
So I feel before you can do that, you have to stop the decline, right? So when we talk about population, I believe the last stat I heard was 1,500 people would be leaving Jefferson County this year was the projected. You got to stop that. We can't necessarily worry about getting to what it was before until we stop. You know, if you're leaking blood, leaking oil, you got to stop that leak. So how do we do that? And that's make the citizens that are currently here, that have stayed with Jefferson County, who have chose this to be their home, is to let them have a better quality of life. Once they start seeing that, then we can focus on the growth. Do I believe we can grow to what it used to be? I do believe that could happen. We got railways, we got interstates, we have an airport, we have the things that can bring the economic status here. But we got to focus on stopping the bleed, is like I like to call it. And once you do that, opportunities are limitless. So I believe it can happen, but I don't know that that's where the focus needs to be right now.
Heard, understood. Okay, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure. You guys are now more informed. So when you head to the polls, make sure. Can't tell you what to do. Gotta do what you're gonna do when you get in there. But we thank you.